Hello and welcome to Celtic State of Mind. It is the half-time analysis for St Johnstone versus Celtic. Celtic are 1-0 up after what some might describe a tough first half. Not that St Johnstone were coming out of their shells to have a go at us, but quite the opposite. They were hunkering down the hatches and quite effectively stopping us in our attacks. But we'll get into that in a little bit more detail. Liam, I'll come to you first. Two corners in the first 3 minutes. A good piece of play between Hatate and Bernabe at about 6 minutes to create a crossing chance. We started quite positively, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we were at them right from the first minute, and not that many clear-cut chances created, but plenty of possession, plenty of pressure. No, I think we were. I think we're much more in command than a one-goal lead would suggest.
Mm-hmm. Um, eh, Jared, I'm going to get on to why I think the one goal lead has been kept at a one goal lead, and it is in part due to St Johnstone's effective play, but we'll get to that in a second. The positive points that I talked about there was followed up by that chance that Abada missed on 7 minutes. A great cross out from the left. I can't remember if it was Bernabe or Jota at this point, but crossed it in, and Abada, I think, was maybe trying to be a bit too clever with it and hit it back across where the goalkeeper was coming from. Just completely mishit it and went over the bar. But how concerned are you looking at stuff like that, given all the discussion there's been around, us taking our chances? Is that just a thing we have to put up with, or are you hoping to see us take more of those going forward?
Okay, the difference on that is we can get away with that in the domestic league. In
Yeah.
Europe, that's coming back to haunt us. That's what the conversation is and the narrative is at the moment around our squad. Like, we missed that. Very wasteful. Should have been in. It was a great cross from Jota. I actually had it on my notes, Laura, who did it. So it was actually good that you said you weren't sure because it tied in perfect. But yeah, great cross by Jota. Abada should have done much better.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was. It's like Jared says, Liam. It's not necessarily that any Celtic supporter out there has a problem with us creating and missing chances. That's going to happen. But as we've seen today, we could afford to miss that chance because others were coming up. You don't get those chances against the Real Madrid or even a Leipzig or Shakhtar.
Yeah. I mean that is true, but I think also you do have to give a bit of credit to the opposition there.
Yeah.
Excellent save from the St Johnstone keeper, particularly for the O'Reilly shot. The Abada miss, that ball bounces up at a very weird angle right in front of him just as he's going to hit it. He should have taken it with his left foot, right? But, that's just something that I think you can't really legislate for. I would put those two down to a combination of good defending and bad luck rather than any errors on our part. But yeah, we do, we need to get back into the routine we had early in the season of routinely scalping teams like this 3 and 4-0, because we should be 3 or 4-0 up by now.
Yeah, I'm going to do exactly what you said. I'm going to share my screen here and just show you one reason I think that we're maybe having a bit of a problem. As you can see down the bottom there, the shape that we're having with Celtic has changed slightly because of the McGregor injury. Hatate and O'Reilly are taking more of an anchor position, with Haksabanovic here almost taking up a number 10 in between Abada and Jota and Yakimakis up front. At first, I kind of thought the game was passing Haksabanovic by a little bit, but he actually really found his feet, and especially as you can tell, as we'll talk about later in the first half, really became effective. But I think looking at the St Johnstone side, as you said, Liam, they deserve an awful lot of credit for what they've done, because they've got this 3-5-2 formation, but what's quite clear is the minute that they lose possession, that those two wide players are just dropping back and it's becoming a back five that's really, really hard to break down.
Yeah.
Jared, I think I wanted to come on to what you were talking about Andy Considine, being a bit of a shin kicker. He gave away what could have been considered to be a potential penalty shout on 14 minutes. He was kind of all over Yakimakis. What was your view on that? Did you feel that it was a penalty, or do you think that would have been a bit harsh on St Johnstone if that had been awarded?
If it was against us, I'd probably be up in arms going, that's soft. But at the end of the day, we've seen those given in the league, particularly to a certain club on the other side of Glasgow. But to me, that's a penalty. He fouled him before he had an opportunity to get to the ball. If that was a foul outside the box, the ref would normally wave play on or advantage. That's what I mean, not play on. So it's a foul. So if it's a foul in the box, it's a penalty. That's pretty cut and dry to me.
Yeah, what was your view on that, Liam? Would you say that was a penalty? Was it a bit harsh? I think personally, I'm not totally raging that it wasn't given, but I think there was certainly a case there.
I think it is, to use a bit of a cliche, it's one of those that you see them given, you see them not given. And the thing is, looking at the replay, I don't know if it's one that VAR would specifically have corrected either, because even on the replay, there is some kind of contact from Considine on Giakoumakis, but it's not clear. You see an arm going up, but it's like, does he slap him in the head? Does he hit him with his forearm? It's difficult to tell. And I think you can't really give a penalty on a video review. I don't think you can give a penalty unless you see a clear infraction. And although he clearly did something, we don't know. You can't really tell what it was. So, no, not a penalty for me. But Jared has a very good point. I have seen those given before.
Yeah,
I was going to jump in there if I can quickly though, Liam. If that was outside the box, that would be given as a foul.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's a great.
Just arguing it that way. If it was outside the box, that would be given as a foul. But if that's given in the box as a foul, which therefore means it's a penalty, the penalty element of it is a little harsh. That's what I was referring to before. So if it's given as a foul, then fine, it should be a penalty. That's what I'm saying. But yeah.
No, that's a bit of a logical disconnect that a lot of referees have, is that, that's a free kick, but it's not hard enough to be a penalty. If it's a foul, it should be a penalty, regardless.
Yeah, they almost feel as if the threshold for awarding it is higher, but it shouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly.
Just before we crack on, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the good performances before we get to the goal. But Paul John has asked me to play another trailer for you, just to give another example of some of the content that we provide on the channel that you can find elsewhere. So here's Alan Thompson talking to the channel not too long ago.
It just showed you what a good team we were, how far we got, and ran that Porto team close. They went on and won the Champions League the following season under Mourinho. So it just shows you how good they were. And I think with one or two additions to that team we had, we could have gone a step further, who knows, without a doubt.
So that's the kind of content you can find here on AXOM, and that's why we would really appreciate your votes for the Football Content Awards later this month. We would really appreciate any vote that you can give us, and like and subscribe to the channel below as well. Liam, I'm going to come back to you on one player that I think has been pretty outstanding. He was essential to the goal. We've already talked about his role in setting up a couple of chances early in the match. Rio Hatate just strolls about the pitch. I mean, he's one player that, like we talked about, there's certain things you can afford to do in the domestic game that you can't afford to do in Europe. He's one player that I don't think has looked out of place in Europe or domestically all season. How good has he been yet again today?
Man of the match so far, in my opinion. He's not wasted a pass. Everything that he's done in an attacking sense has been productive, has been positive, and it's been good to watch. Someone needs to give that Japan manager a talking to and just say, look, get Hatate in that team, for God's sake. If they're going to have any chance of beating Germany or Spain, Japan need him in that midfield.
It was the same as I said with USA. Japan applies as well. If Hatate's not getting in that midfield, then I want to know who the midfielders are, because I'd like to sign them as well. But Jared, Hatate just, there was one point where Ian Crocker, the commentator, sort of says, well, that's one way to pass it, and it was a wee shoulder flick, sort of chest flick that Hatate did. He just seems to have this instinct for knowing where to pass the ball and when, and as I've always said about him since he came into the team, play passes and take risks that just nobody else sees. He very often is the key that unlocks the defences, isn't he?
The way he's just using random parts of his body to pass the ball, and just the way he's getting it and riding a tackle and getting a pass off, he's giving me the Stan Petrov vibes today. Seriously, that's what I'm saying. But I'm happy with what he's doing. He's playing well, as Liam said. He's man of the match so far. But yeah, he's probably been one of our best so far by a long shot. However, I want to quickly just rattle a couple of others. Haksabanovic, been amazing. Bernabei, though.
Yep.
We haven't seen a drop-off with Taylor going out of the squad with Bernabei in today as well. So they are the three that I've got as my top three so far for the half.
I'll agree with that. What I would say as well is another player I would mention who I think's been having one of the better games out of the team. I would say Ralston on the other side as well has been really forcing himself into contention for a more regular starting spot. What about you, Liam? Is there anybody apart from the ones we've mentioned there who you think deserves particular praise for the first half?
No, I think you've pretty much covered all the bases there. I mean, the whole team have done a good job of being persistent in the face of a very strong resistance from St Johnstone. We didn't get frustrated. We didn't resort to hit and hope. We kept playing our slow, methodical passing build-up and then quick play down the wings. Bernabei has been excellent. As I mentioned pre-match, I could have saw him stepping up and becoming a bit of an outball for the midfielders, and that's exactly what's happened. His link-up on the wing has been superb. It's just really good to see, and we know now for sure that in terms of the current rebalancing we have to do because McGregor's out, I am quite happy and quite confident with where we are. I think we're doing quite well.
Yeah, I think the thing I would say is, and I know that you mentioned before about, you would like us to get back to free scoring winning ways, and I think I would as well. But I think what I'm seeing at least is we're up against a team who have absolutely been told to go out there and park the bus as much as any team's ever parked the bus against us, and yet we're still going at them, we're still finding ways to get through, and we have got through. So that's an encouraging sign as well. Just to get a few comments coming up. Kookaburra says Japan must have some midfield if Hatate can't get in. Absolutely. Marquis says Bernabei finally looking a player. And Polymorphous said in response to Brown Warrior, Hatate is on the fringes of the game, but he's also one of the few that have made a few penetrating passes and runs, which is absolutely true. Jared, I'll come to you in this first, just before the second half starts. What do you want to see from us in the second half? Are you expecting any changes to the lineup, or is it more of the same for at least the start of the second half?
More of the same, and I'm going to sound a little, bit of a perfectionist here, but I want to see a bit more one-touch football if we can, especially when they pack in so many guys in behind the ball. There was a few patches there, only little ones where we going backwards across the back line a bit much, but I know when they go back five, it's kind of hard to do. So it's hard to break down teams parking the bus. Understand that completely. But so far, so good. More one-touch football to try and speed them up and draw them out will open up the more chances for Jack and Marcus in particular.
Yeah. Liam, I think the one-touch football that Jared's talking about that we want to see more of is exactly what we saw with the goal. The play between Hatate and Haksabanovic was excellent. Obviously, we got the stroke of luck with it going in off the St Johnstone defender, but you make your own luck sometimes in those situations with the way the move was put together.
I think that's where you could see Kyogo coming in at about the hour mark. Like Jared said, get back to the one-touch stuff and, playing against a tired defence who have put up such a hard resistance for an hour. I could see Kyogo coming in and linking up and making some really good chances in the second half and hopefully taking a few of them. Because I've got 4-0 on my coupon.
4-0 on your coupon. Well, they better get the finger out if that's the case, because it's going to take a serious amount of work to get past this St Johnstone defence. Jared, just before we go into the second half, just a word about that St Johnstone defence. It's nothing less than you expect from a player of Callum Davidson's calibre now as a manager, that he would know how to set up against us. Is there anything different you would try to break that down, or do you think they will eventually tire of the amount of work that they're putting in the second half?
It's very workmanlike defence they're doing, so that's obvious. But the issue we've got is because we've got so much possession. Oh, there you go, Maeda's coming on, so there's a change for us. But what it's looking like is, because we've got so much possession, they're so deep in their box. Like, their actual back line is pretty much on the penalty spot to the 6-yard box. So if we could somehow manage to move it up, draw them out so we can get some space to get our wingers in behind, get them into the byline, look to cut back, that may be able to open them up a bit there. So Josh is off, Maeda's on.
Yeah, Jota's off and Maeda's on in what looks to be the only change for the second half. So that should be pretty much a straight swap, I would think, unless Maeda and Abada decide to swap sides at some point, or if Haksabanovic maybe comes out and Maeda goes into a more central role. But we'll wait and see what happens. Far from us to try and predict what Ange is going to do with the second half. So, Liam, Jared, thank you for joining me. Thanks everybody for joining us in the comments, and we will see you at full time at the end of what will hopefully be another Celtic victory. Thank you very much.